Hello and welcome back to my channel, Checks Captures Threats. Today's episode, we are going over the English. So, we went over the Caro-Kann last time out. Now, we're going to go over a white opening here, which is the English. So, now, hopefully what we're going to get from this is the ideas. Now, it's a little bit different, but there is opening ideas, what we've done before. So, the idea of the Queen's Gambit is in this, we can still play that. And it's still going towards the centre. It's just a little bit weird almost. Now, this is an opening used high level. This was all the way down the 19th century it started. So, there is that. Now, what we're going to go over is the how white can play it and the ideas that black can play as well. So, hopefully, we can find the strengths, weaknesses, and the plans. So, just while we make the first move here, the English was now started actually with the guy Howard Staunton. Now, obviously, the move is c4, so very weird move. We'll go over that in a second. But Howard Staunton, if you know the last name, if you like collecting, chess sets maybe, Staunton is always known for its chess pieces, maybe even a board and all of that. So, but he also created the English. Now, here we play c4. Now, what does this do? So, it's a bit of an unconventional move. We're not playing a move like d4, already obtaining the centre. We're playing a flank-like move. We are still actually obtaining the centre because we've actually got this d5 square, but we haven't got the two squares this time. We've only got the one. Now, the reasons why this could be good is that it doesn't limit, we're straight away attacking into here. This could stop this move sometimes, and, we can get nicer development. So, here, after trying to control the d5 square, you'd like to try and play something like either e4 or d4. Now, the good thing is, like we said here, this move to d5, we can do what we can do, converting, we can convert this opening, the English, straight away back into the Queen's Gambit. We can play d4, and we're back to our usual position. So, nothing too bad there. Now, there's a few other scenarios which we'll go over what black can respond with, but for the minute, the plans for white is we're going to be developing this knight to c3 and then g3 with a pawn and then Frenchetto. So if we just play a few moves here, it will not be the exact moves, but this is the sort of position we'd like maybe out of one of the lots here. Now the reason why this is good is a very nice pawn chain here, which we can even add up if we can get this d pawn to d5, but we can also, with this Frenchettoed bishop, this is facing right towards the king side. So if they do castle king side, which is a predominant thing, because like the Queen's Gambit, they castle king side, wouldn't be any different here. They can castle queen side, but even then, we've still got our pawns pushed on that c file already. So here, this already attacks this, and we've got our knight out again behind this pawn, so it's not jamming the pawn in or anything. Now, a few other things here. There is, so moves like, if we go back a bit, d3, this is a very good move as well, because if we do not want to Frenchetto, maybe we still want the knight in this position here, maybe we want this bishop to come out here, like the Queen's Gambit again, but maybe there's always different ways here, and also this will help for a huge queenside attack if we ever wanted to push a4 and b4. And there's also other moves like e4 here, which later on you might see is a Stonewall like, that's something kind of an opening of a Dutch we'll go over soon. Now, we obviously always have d4, that happens a lot, e4 and d4, like the London, we try and go e4, there's all of that sort of moves still within the English. Now, this is a little bit, obviously, flexible, the English we can transfer onto anything, so another opening would be called the Reti. The Reti is where we move the knight out straight away to here. Now, the reason this is a right opening as well is because this can convert to absolutely anything. If they play, some random move here, we can play the English straight away, for example. So, there is that. Now, we can always, this c4 move, I don't think there's any threats. This is a very good move. I play this a lot. You can't be, in the worst part of this. There's not really anything you're losing straight away. Don't get me wrong, a move like e4 or d4 is probably better, but if you want to try, maybe you're starting to go on a losing streak with your Queen's Gambit and London, maybe you want to try and move on to something a bit more, not so tactical, but still having that flexible and strategic, then this is definitely the opening. So, now, obviously, the point that it's being strategic and not tactical is it's a nice. If you do not like tactical openings for e4, play c4. E4, if you don't really like all of the, how he was evaluating positions and also, how to think ahead. If you don't like all of that, then maybe e4 isn't the best because you get all into the Sicilian and all that type of stuff. And obviously, with this English, is we kind of saw how we set up this position over sort of this way here. What we was able to see is we're kind of setting up our pieces again. So you know how like the London system, as a systems we played a certain few moves in an order. This time it's also sort of positional, how again our pieces all into the right squares before we launch counterattack. So that is all the white sort of things now. Now what we're going to go over here is the black responses firstly. So facing c4, black has loads of choices. Now main one, mirror, symmetrical English, there's nothing wrong there. Now, there's a few moves you can play here. d4 is also this is what we call Benoni. This is what normally black plays to c5 here. So this would lead to moves normally like d3, or you can even continue your knight to c3, vice versa with this pawn and the bishop. So all good there. They might even try and, copy you then. And now there is also a thing called the reverse Sicilian. So we'll be going over Sicilian a lot because it's a very in-depth opening with e4 and c5. As we can see here, it's quite the reverse with d4 and e5. Now, this is alright, I think, still, as this is probably one of the most common, I would say, you would see. Again, a move like this, and then maybe d3, and then seeing where you want to go with maybe you want to get the bishop out, maybe you want to get this. Now, most of the time, if you play d3, I would say Frenchetto this bishop, and then get a really nice castled king. So actually I could just show you here, if we just play a few moves ahead now, or even castle. If we look at this is a very nice position with how our pieces are all kind of blocked in there. So, well, I say blocked in, but all protected there. Now, we also have stuff like the Indian here, the Indian defense. So this is where they're going to immediately do this. This happens in the London, the Queens, everything. So this is a opening that you've kind of got to know. Now, what I would say here is h4 is a very good move later on. After you set up your opening, maybe we don't Frenchetto here with our bishop, and maybe just soon. Now, they normally castle a lot here. I think we had this in our first loss in the rapid increase. So, just got to be careful with that. And sometime around now, you'd push h4, for example, looking at going to h5. Now, there is also one other one, and that is the Slav / Caro-Kann style one, which is c6. Now, this is obviously the Caro-Kann like, but because it's the Slav, because it could easily transform into it, and we haven't got that e4 push. Now, my guess is that if we did do something like this, it gets really risky with this, and we don't really want to do that. So again, I would suggest as white, we play some sort of d3 move, and maybe it also blocks their knight in, like the Caro-Kann already does. So you're expecting the knight to d7. We went over all of that last time in the learning openings, so there we go. Now, that is the 4 sort of ways around it. Now, just make sure the key ideas here is that they're going to challenge d5 here, because obviously straight away they could technically. I feel like they wouldn't do it straight away. I wouldn't do it as black as well. Obviously, we're trying to help each side how to play against and for the English. I wouldn't do d5 straight away because you kind of get that Queen's Gambit, and I feel like you could do a lot more to counter it. Also, again, because it's flexible, maybe you do modern sort of openings, symmetrical openings as black. Sometimes maybe this c6, it's a bit weird, but it might be a weird that white might not know what to do. And again, obviously these reversed roles and even the knight for the Indian is also good. So, the main things here, the summary now, is that as white, what we want to know is that the English is about flexibility, flank control, and manoeuvring. So obviously getting our knight and bishop into the right squares, and using this c4 maybe to push with these other 2 pawns, and also remembering that the flank here to the centre is protecting that d5 square. And as black, the key is to choose a setup you're comfortable with. So whether that is the symmetrical reverse Sicilian or Indian, and do not let white have the centre. So, no, don't let them have the moves like, any of these sort of moves as much as you can. Now, you might have to give up d4, for example, because they could play that very quickly, and this knight move, again, you will not be able to stop. So that is it for today's video. That is the English. Hopefully now you understand, and hopefully give it a go. My thing I'd say here is, if you want to play an opening, don't play it straight away against someone. Now, either play out the move. If you're just by yourself, just play it out, see what you can do, see if you can remember the openings where you don't want to make mistakes, straight away. And then try and play an AI, whether it's the engine, or if you have chess.com, you can play the bots, anything like that. That helps with the openings. That makes you get such a sustained, startup. So that's it for today's video. So thank you, and bye-bye.